Hello. Good afternoon and welcome to Female Leaders on Fire Live. And I am your host. I'm Nicola Buckley. I am the coach that helps female leaders in the corporate world to find their fire. So to find that passion, that purpose, that excitement, to have more impact, more influence and more income as a result. So today I have just recorded, I'm super excited because I've just recorded my first interview for my podcast. So I'm now into week 6 of my podcast, which is called Female Leaders on Fire. So this live show is kind of part of that, and we follow the same general themes. So I'm super excited this week because this is something that I see so many women in the corporate world struggle with, is that feeling of being an imposter, the imposter syndrome. So feeling you're going to be found out, feeling like a fraud, feeling like, who am I to do this? And just that fear of really not being enough. And it's really, when it comes down to it, it's the fear of not being enough just in fancy clothes, because we've just given it a name and we've created a syndrome from it. But really what I see so many women struggle with is that then they're feeling like a fraud or an imposter when they're leading in the corporate world, because they feel they need to be someone. They feel like being themselves isn't going to have the impact and influence they want. So they change who they are, or they compromise who they are, or they really exacerbate certain qualities that are seen within the leadership of the organization already, and they downplay other qualities that they actually have. And what that leads to is you are effectively being an imposter because you're not being yourself. So if you're not being yourself, you will always feel like an imposter. And I say this with absolute love. But really, at the heart of not feeling like an imposter and struggling with imposter syndrome is really being yourself, bringing your whole self to work, bringing the dark and the light, the strong and the weaker things that you struggle with a little bit more, the absolute clarity, the things that, fuzzle your brain a little bit, and everything in between, and just showing up with your whole self. So today, I'm going to be talking about just what is imposter syndrome. We talk about some of the symptoms of imposter syndrome. Then I'm going to talk about why it might not actually be a thing, which I think is a really, really important thing to consider. We just kind of very easily label imposter syndrome, or we very easily attribute as how we're feeling to imposter syndrome when it might not even actually be a thing. And then how to start to get past it. And also why women struggle with it more than men, potentially. So first of all, just to say, if you do struggle with imposter syndrome, please put your comments. Please just share some comments, share some views, perspectives, and I'll either respond to live, or I'll just watch. I'll come back to it after I've finished today. But just to say, you're absolutely not alone if you struggle with imposter syndrome. And as I was researching for the podcast episode, it was actually there's up to 85% of female senior leaders had experienced imposter syndrome at some point during their career. But actually it's wider than that. And there's an assumption that women struggle with imposter syndrome, but actually it's prevalent across very senior layers of the organization. And actually 92% of leaders at some point will experience some form of imposter syndrome. And it's that reassuring thing of knowing that you're not alone in feeling like this. You're not alone in having those feelings. So what is actual imposter syndrome? What is it? What are we actually talking about? So it's that sense of being found out, that sense of, who am I to do this? That sense of not really recognizing and owning your skills and your experience and your knowledge. And feeling like you don't deserve the success that you've had. So the language you might use, you might put down your success to, I've just been lucky. I was just in the right place at the right time. I just had a great mentor who really supported me. And you're just putting it down to luck, or to just a fluke, or just being in the right place at the right time, or someone just helping and really supporting and driving your journey. But it's not the truth, and it's not what's going on. But because you don't necessarily own your abilities and skills in the way that you should, and you have that fire about, this is who I am, and the strength to stand proud and tall behind it, it feels really challenging then to really recognize your own achievements. So it's not actually, to be really, really clear on what imposter syndrome is, it's not actually a recognized psychiatric disorder. It's not actually a known mental condition. It's not actually a recognized health syndrome. It's really simple. At the heart of it, it's really simple, and it's self-doubt showing up when you step into something new. It's self-doubt showing up when you step into that big new role, or you're asked and invited to join the board, or you're invited into a very senior meeting, or you move into a different area or a different industry. And what I really would like you to think about today is, when you're feeling like a fraud or imposter, is it actually that it's about you not feeling enough, or is it actually that you're just stepping into something new? Because when you're stepping into something new, you will always feel those feelings in some way. You will feel that sense of, oh my God, can I do this? Oh my God, I'm doing it. Oh my God, I've done it. And that's all perfectly normal. That's just part of a change curve. That's just a learning and growing experience. So I would just, the first thing I would say today is to really challenge yourself, just when you think about imposter syndrome. Is it actually imposter syndrome, or is it actually that you're simply stepping into something new? And we've just labeled this, we're labeling it all too readily, that women struggle with imposter syndrome, or they're struggling with imposter syndrome. And actually, it's this term that's been used, started to be used in the 70s. It's a term first used by two psychologists, Susanna Immers and Pauline Rose Clance. I'm just checking their names. And actually, we've then heavily attributed to women, and we've weighted it on people that are moving into bigger roles. We've kind of given it more power than it needs to have, because we've labeled it. And then when we step into labels, we battle with that perception. We're almost weighted down by, actually, I struggle with imposter syndrome. I have imposter syndrome. It's something. And then similarly with confidence, someone could say to you, once you're not as confident as you can be, that might be a whole lifetime struggle then to actually feel confident. So how does it actually show up? How does imposter syndrome show up? So the physical symptoms are that sense of, in your stomach, you might feel a little bit anxious, feel a little bit sick. You might feel it quite hard to concentrate. You might feel sweaty palms. You might feel like it's quite hard to speak up and kind of just share what you're thinking and what you're feeling, because you're feeling worried. It might be that you're feeling a little bit shaky. It might be that you're feeling a little bit like, almost like you're not grounded and you're kind of stuck in your own head. So those are kind of like the physical symptoms. And what's the impact of it? What do you kind of experience when you're struggling with imposter syndrome? Well, you might experience self-doubt. So you might be something that you know you can do, but you've not done it for a long time, or it's in a slightly different way. You might just have that self-doubt. Who am I to do this? You might not be recognizing your own skills and your own abilities. You might be downplaying them. You might not be letting them be recognized. You might attribute your success to external factors of luck or right place, right time. It might be that you become a perfectionist and you really berate your performance, and anything less than perfect isn't enough, but perfect isn't really a thing. We'll talk about that on a whole different episode, I think. You might have that fear that you're not going to live up to expectations. It might be that you overgive and in order to overachieve, to feel safe and not to feel, and to really prove yourself and demonstrate your value and worth, which is just exhausting. It might be that you're sabotaging your own success. It might be that you're really, when you get to very near to where you want to be, ready for that next promotion or recognized and respected in the way that you want to, you do something then self-sabotage. Self-sabotage is a whole other thing that I'll talk about in another episode. And it might be that you set huge goals for yourself, and then you feel very disappointed when you fall short, where it wasn't actually a realistic goal in the first place. And it's not a reflection on what you're capable of, just a reflection on what you've put out there as a goal. So I've seen many of my clients struggle with imposter syndrome, and really at the heart of it is a lack of knowing yourself, a lack of clarity in who you are, to then have confidence in what you want, and to show up and speak up as who you are. So one particular client was a sales director. She'd always felt like an imposter. She worked in a very male-dominated area of the business, a big business, and she changed who she was. She became one of the lads to fit in. She just changed who she was. So she didn't show this beautiful, empathetic and vulnerable side of who she was, because she didn't think that would fit in within her own division. Yet she was the one ultimately shaping that division and just what happened within it, and the environment, the culture within it. And when we started working together, she had this huge presentation coming up. That was part of the drive to kind of seek me out and work with me, was to really enjoy this presentation rather than just the sleepless nights that she'd had about it. And the biggest thing we did was really help her to get a huge amount of clarity on who she was. So at the heart of who she was. So what were her values? What were her beliefs? What was her vision? What did she want her leadership to look like and feel like? And all of that clarity led into being able to show up more as herself. She dropped the things that weren't her, and she stepped into being all the things that were her. And she did this for her presentation, and it was a huge company-wide presentation. And she had just the most incredible feedback from that day. It was elements of humor, elements of vulnerability. It was just completely her. And as part of that, before she went on stage, just helping her to remind herself of her values, and also just to know that she was safe to be herself. And that had a huge impact for her, just in the level of recognition, the level of respect, and just how her team performed around her as well. So why do women struggle more? Well, it's really hard to be what you can see. So if you don't have the role models in your organization, it might be that you have at the top, there might be more of an alpha style, just style of leadership that is the kind of the accepted style of leadership. It might be that you're fearing being judged and stepping into the arena, and what will people say about you? And it might be childhood beliefs. It might be down to things that you were told as a child. So who am I to do this? Or you're too loud, or you're too bossy, or you're too much of something. So you downplay who you are. So how can you start to shift and change it? Just some super quick ideas. So the first point is learn about yourself, become the world leading expert in who you are, and start to really step into that. So learn about the light and the dark and the mysterious and the known and everything in between, and really step into that and really own that. Point number 2 is know that growth is painful, but in a brilliant way. And when you have those worries and wobbles, it's actually just a sign that you're growing and that you're becoming more. Point number 3 is just fear and excitement are the same thing in your body. So just really consider what you're labeling things. So is that big opportunity, that big presentation, or that big pitch? Is that, are you feeling excited, or are you telling yourself that you're scared? And just be careful with your language. And the final thing is just really knowing that you is enough. Being yourself is enough. You were brought onto this, you have a purpose, you have a reason to be here. The reason that you're here is a 400 trillion to 1 absolute freak of nature. There is a reason, a purpose that you're here. So know that being you is enough. So that's it. So quite a short one this week, and I am back tomorrow. I'm going back with the brilliant Rebecca Daniels and Sarah Bramwell from Coaching Catalyst to talk about their experience of imposter syndrome. And yeah, I'm super excited. So I'll be back at midday tomorrow to talk to them about this. And then the podcast episode is out on Friday. So when we go into a bit more depth about imposter syndrome. So if you're interested in working with me, please drop me a message on LinkedIn if this has resonated with you at all and you're ready to find your fire. Drop me a message if I can help your organization or you individually. And and we'll go from there. So that's it for today. Lots of love to you, and I will speak to you very soon. Bye.